Spanish food has a wonderful reputation all over the world. But what do British people think of it? And which dishes are our personal favourites? Find out what we think of Spanish cuisine and improve your food vocabulary in this episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching between us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Craig?
I am very well, thank you. Are you feeling hungry?
I am. I'm feeling a bit peckish. Yeah. Shall we have something to whet our appetite?
Do you mean wet, W-E-T?
Not that. W-H-E-T. To whet our appetite, to get our taste buds in motion.
Actually, that's an interesting difference because W-H-E-T actually means to sharpen your appetite. And we had the expression to wet your whistle on a previous podcast, and that means to put some alcohol or beer perhaps, or at least some liquid in your throat to wet your whistle, which is W-E-T. But to whet your appetite has a completely different meaning. It means to sharpen your appetite in the same way that you would sharpen a tool or sharpen a knife.
Any ideas how we could do that, Craig?
Yes, I have an idea how we can whet our appetite because we have in front of us a lovely gift from our friend Alberto, who is living in Australia, but he was recently in Madrid and he very kindly sent us a package of Australian goodies. What did he send us, Reza?
Oh, thank you so much, Alberto. You really made our day. He has sent us a little collection of Australian chocolate. Really, really good stuff. He sent us some chocolate licorice. Licorice is regaliz. Chocolate licorice. He sent us some chocolate caramel with coconut. And the one we're going to try now is chocolate from Vanuatu. Is that right, Craig?
Yes, Vanuatu. It's made in a place called Maji in Australia, and it actually won the Australian Food Award in 2016, the Gold Award, and it's 72% cocoa, which is exactly up my alley, which means it's what I really, really love. I'm just opening it now.
Ooh,
and it smells wonderful. I'm going to take some and then pass it over to Reza for Reza to try.
Oh, give me a bit of that.
It does look good.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'll have a bit of that as well.
Thank you very much, Alberto. This is a treat for us.
Yeah, this is a live tasting.
Yeah, it's good.
Forgive my chewing, but
it's very smooth and there's a fruitiness.
That is excellent. It really is good. Smooth yet full of flavour at the same time. Wow.
Can you taste some citrus there? Some lemon or orange in the chocolate?
And as you said, something fruity and like raisins or something?
Yes.
Even though they're not there, it's as if it had some raisins in it, but there are no raisins in it. It's marvellous.
It's very, very good chocolate. 72% cocoa, dark chocolate. So absolutely fantastic. Well, let's continue speaking about food.
Rather than speak about food now, I just want to eat food.
Well, we'll have some lunch after this episode.
Shall we leave Australia and get back to Spain?
Well, before we go to Spain and Spanish food, let's listen to Patricio, who sent us a message all the way from Buenos Aires in Argentina. And
now I want a steak. Now I want a beef steak.
Or some dulce de leche. Let's listen to Patricio's message.
Hi, Greg and Reza. How are you? My name is Patricio. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I'd like to thank you for all the work you do. I've been listening to you for less than a week now, every day in the bus, and I really enjoy it, and I already feel that I learn a lot and I improve my listening and my vocabulary. My pronunciation, it's a different story, but I'm working on it. I also like to thank you the episode about Argentina. I laugh a lot with Reza's accent. It really I didn't see that coming, and I couldn't stop laughing. So thank you, and if you can suggest me any place in the internet where I can measure my English level, I really appreciate it. Thank you, and goodbye.
Che, Patricio, muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, hombre.
Thank you very much for your message. It's wonderful to hear from you. And I really liked a couple of things in your message. The first thing I liked, Patricio, was the way you're using the podcast to multitask. So you're listening on the bus, you're traveling to or from work or whatever, and you're using that dead time to improve your English, which is one reason why we do this podcast, because we know you have busy lives, you're doing things, you're exercising, you're cleaning the flat, you're working, you're walking the dog, you're going on the bus. So if you can listen to us at the same time, then you're making the most of your time and you're improving your English. So that's one thing I really liked. And there were some interesting expressions in Patricio's message, Reza, weren't there?
Yes, a really good expression you used was that you didn't see it coming. You didn't see that coming. My absurd Argentinian accent. You didn't know it was going to happen. It surprised you. You didn't see it coming. One little thing, though, I did notice a little mistake or two. I think you said you listen in the bus, but we say on the bus in English. It's weird that, isn't it? Because we say in a car, you know, why not the same for a bus? Maybe because it's bigger and like public transport. So usually on the bus, usually on the train, but in a car. Yeah. And also you said thank you, the episode on Argentina. Thank you for something. So just as we said thank you for the chocolate to Alberto, you could say thank you for the episode.
And also, apart from the expression that we both liked, I didn't see that coming, I also really liked your expression, I'm working on it. I'm working on it, which means it's work in progress. That's a very positive expression, especially if you're in a job interview, for example, and maybe there's something that you're a bit weak on, there's something you're not very good at. If you use the expression, well, I'm working on it, that's a very positive, constructive way to say you're improving and it's work in progress.
Patricio, I'm working on my accent. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying to improve it. I need to eat more top quality steaks and dulce de leche, and maybe my accent will improve.
Dulce de leche. There's your question about the level test, Patricio. If you go to the website mentioningles.com, we have a level test on the website, and we also have 4 separate courses at 4 different levels. So you can do the level test, obviously free of charge. It will give you an idea of your level. But you can also do free courses on the website. And we have levels at Iniciación, so really beginners or false beginners, that's A1 to A2 level. There's a basic course, el curso básico, which is A2 to B1. There's an intermediate course, which is B1 to B2. And there's an advanced course, avanzado, at B2 to C1. So that's where you can do a level test. And if you would like, you can do a course depending on the level that you have.
Craig, apart from that useful information you just given, and apart from listening to our podcast, is there any other place where our listeners might improve their English?
Well, it's funny you should ask that question because I was just about to speak about our sponsor, italki. If you're a new listener, you may not know that this podcast is supported in part by italki, which is a website where you can find a private teacher. Now, yes, you can listen to this podcast and you can go to mentioningles.com and do a course, but at some point you're going to need to speak and improve your speaking and your conversational skills. And a very good way to do this is with italki, because you can find a private teacher and practice conversation with them, and they will also give you feedback on how to improve different aspects of your grammar, areas of vocabulary, collocation, pronunciation. So you can improve very quickly with a personal one-to-one private teacher. Reza, if anyone's interested in more information or a $10 credit, where should they go?
So what you need to do is just go to the notes for this episode. So inglespodcast.com/299 and click on the link or the image for italki. And if you sign up with italki for your first class, they will give you free $10 to get you started of their italki credits for your first purchase.
And please, if you do try italki and you do hook up with a private teacher, connect with a private teacher, please let us know about your experience. We'd be very interested to get some feedback. We are in touch with italki, so we would send them emails and tell them about the positive or maybe negative experiences you have with the service, because they're constantly trying to make it as good as possible for you. So please let us know if you have lessons with a private teacher and what you felt about it. And thank you very much, italki, for sponsoring this podcast.
Well, as Craig said at the beginning, we're going to talk about Spanish food, but we got a nice link to get us there. We have an email from Mexico City, and Mexico was in fact what we talked about in our previous episode 298, and it's a Mexican, Luis, who sent us this email, which gave us the idea for this episode.
Yes, Luis sent us an email and said, I've been listened to your podcast since many months ago, but perhaps we can help Luis improve that a little. It's better to say I have been listening to your podcast for many months. So be careful of the difference between since and for. And the word ago is better with past simple. So maybe I started listening 6 months ago. Or I've been listening to your podcast for many months and I really enjoy it. I want to ask about Spanish food, says Luis. I visited Valencia 3 years ago. Very good, Luis. That was perfect. I visited Valencia 3 years ago and I loved the food, especially some rice dishes and the pergola's super bombom. Have you heard of that, Reza?
Well, I know that Pergola is a cafe in Alameda, and his super bonbon, I suppose he's talking about that coffee that they drink in Valencia, some people, which is like a cortado. It's like a little coffee, but instead of milk, they put in condensed milk.
I don't think it is that, because I did look at their website quickly and it seems to be full of sandwiches.
Oh.
I have a feeling, and please, Luis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a sandwich, a bocadillo, that they specialize in at this place.
Well, in that case, then, I thought maybe you had misspelt bonbon, which is with an N, because you wrote with an M, bonbon, but I guess it's something different then. Yeah, bonbon is the coffee, but this must be something different than a bonbon, a sandwich.
I think it is the sandwich, although you may be right. And then Luis says, have you ever tried? Luis, remember the object. You need to have the object. So have you ever tried the sandwich, or have you ever tried the coffee, or just use the pronoun it? Have you ever tried it? Have you ever tried it, Reza?
One of these sandwiches?
One of these sandwiches at the bonbons?
No, I've tried a bonbon cafe. I don't like it at all. Sorry to our Valencian listeners. And I don't know the bonbon sandwich, I'm afraid.
I have never eaten there, but it does look very good on the webpage. So thanks for the recommendation. If you're in Valencia or visiting Valencia, that's Pergola's Super Bonbon. And the address is in the show notes. It's Paseo de la Alameda, number 1. And I'll also recommend a place for really good sandwiches that's close to where I live on the beach. It's La Pascuala, Dr. Yuch 299. Have you eaten there?
Yes, I have.
Pretty good sandwiches, huh?
Yeah. I've had the famous horse meat sandwich. That's their speciality.
Yep.
Horse meat with serrano ham.
And they're absolutely enormous. In fact, if you go there and you're not a very big eater, I would suggest getting one between two people because they are really, really big and very good food. So Luis continues, my favorite place to eat serrano ham was Casa Vela in downtown. It is an amazing place. Have you visited it?
I haven't. I don't know it.
Me neither. Luis says he was there a couple of times in 4 days. Well, it must be good, so I will check out that place next time I'm in the area. Finally, my favourite historical place was the Quartz Tower. I wish you can talk about the amazing food. Probably better to say, I hope you can talk about the amazing food you can find in that city, and I will keep listening your excellent work. Remember the two, listening to your excellent work and practice my English.
Thank you very much for your email, Luis. And in fact, we have spoken about food before. We did cooking vocabulary and our favorite food way back in episode 142. So if you go to inglespodcast.com/142, you will find some useful vocabulary there like to steam, dice, grate, melt, peel. Oh, you probably don't know those words, do you, if you haven't heard this episode? So check it out, 142.
Yeah, if you enjoy cooking, I definitely recommend you listen to that episode to improve your vocabulary, especially if you read and practice a lot of recipes in English. That will be useful for you. So, Reza, what common food is really good in Valencia?
In Valencia and all over Spain, tortilla patatas.
Yep.
Tortilla patatas. Well, I say all over Spain. Some places do it better than others, but a good tortilla patatas, a good potato omelette, Spanish omelette, in my opinion, is one of the best things you can possibly eat. I love it.
And you cook at home tortilla de patata fairly regularly, don't you?
I do.
Do you have any special tips or anything that you do that may be different from other way of cooking it?
Probably not. It's just you got to be prepared to take your time.
Is that the secret?
It takes time. You do it quick, it's not going to be good. If you do it too quick, the onions and the potatoes will be too hard or you'll burn them. Do it too slow, take too long, and it'll be too soggy. That means too much liquid. You've got to do it carefully, slowly. So to do a good one, it's going to take you about 45 minutes, eh?
Do you boil the potatoes before you fry them?
I don't. Yeah, I don't think you should because I think that way they lose some flavor. Mm-hmm. Although it probably softens them up. But I think the original recipe doesn't require boiling. You just cut them fine so that they fry quickly.
Right.
But it's one of my favorite things in the entire world is a good Spanish omelette. And it's just oil, potatoes, and onion and eggs. Bit of salt. That's it.
Do you put garlic in it?
I don't. Some people do, but the original one is just potatoes and onion. Well, or is it? Oh, here's a Pandora's box. Caja de Pandora. Should there be onion or not? Ooh, some people say, oh, I don't like it with onion, just potatoes. Okay, fine. But in that case, you can't call it a Spanish omelette. Spanish omelette is potato and onions. If you just put potatoes, then it's tortilla de patatas, strictly speaking.
Although speaking from a guiri or gringo perspective, if you say to somebody who doesn't live in Spain a Spanish omelette, they might conjure up the image. To conjure up the image means to think of an image in their head. They might conjure up the image of maybe red or green peppers in a flat omelette that's not a very high omelette. So their idea of a Spanish omelette might be very different to what we know of as a Spanish omelette.
Well, in Spain, they make lots of different types of omelettes, don't they? I mean, pretty much everything. I've had chorizo omelette. I've had vegetable omelette. You can put just about anything in an omelette. But the tortilla española, as they call it in Spain, the Spanish one, potato and onions.
Potato and onions.
That's it.
Okay. Of course, we can't speak about food living as we do in Valencia without mentioning the paella, which originally comes from Valencia. Do you have a personal favourite, Reza? Seafood or chicken? Which way of the fence do you fall on?
Well, Craig, by his very question, has probably offended some Valencians.
Why?
The mere idea that paella could be with seafood.
Many are in restaurants here.
I know. But some Valencian purists, they're pure, they don't want anything that isn't absolutely the way they think the original is, say there's only one paella, and it's chicken and rabbit together, and no seafood, which surprises a lot of people who don't know Valencia or don't know Spain. They presume paella is a little bit of a mixture of everything, but not the Valencian paella. There's no seafood in the original paella valenciana, curiously.
And how do you feel about snails, caracoles? Because I've seen snails in chicken and rabbit paella.
A lot of Valencians say that it is quite authentic, that years ago it was very common to put snails in, and still some people do today.
I don't like them.
I don't mind.
Do you eat them?
Yeah, I would eat snails on their own. And another thing that some people say should be in a Valencian paella is artichoke. And some places will have that. But the things you must have are chicken rabbit, green beans, judías verdes, butter beans.
Butter beans.
Butter
like
beans, yeah.
mantequilla.
Yeah, un tipo de alubia blanca. What they call it in Valencia is garrafó. All Valencians know what I'm talking about, but goodness knows what it's called outside Valencia. It's like a kind of giant butter bean, garrafó. And of course you need the rice. And strictly speaking, saffron, that very expensive herb, and rosemary, romero. They're what should be, according to the purists, definitely in a Valencian paella, and no seafood. But yes, Craig, I have eaten with seafood, particularly in Alicante, where seafood paella is really popular.
Yep.
And I like it as well. What's your favorite?
My favorite's chicken and rabbit because I don't really like seafood. I'm not keen on any kind of seafood, although I do like fish. But shellfish, no, that's not my cup of tea. And definitely not snails. It doesn't bother me that snails are in the paella. I just don't eat them.
Now, I'm about to say something, and I'm a bit concerned for my own personal safety.
Don't worry, I will escort you to your flat and protect you if anyone attacks you in the street.
I might be attacked because I'm in Valencia right now. There are other dishes that I like much more than paella.
Rice dishes.
Yeah, and non-rice dishes. But even rice dishes, I like arroz negro, black rice, which is a Valencian thing where they use the ink, la tinta, of the squid to make the rice go black. I actually prefer that to paella. Mm-hmm. Also, arroz a banda, which is seafood.
Yep.
That's the one with lots of bits of seafood, and it's made in a seafood stock. That's caldo. Mm-hmm. I really like that. And the worst thing of all, now I'm gonna be murdered now. I really like a good vegetable paella. I love a really good vegetable one. No chicken, no rabbit, but loads of vegetable cooked in the paella. I like that.
Well, we're very different, even though we've been here more or less the same number of years. I mean, we have different tastes. I definitely prefer chicken and rabbit. The only rice dish that I do eat quite often here that is maybe as good as a chicken and rabbit paella, arroz al horno.
Arroz al horno.
Rice in the oven with some
chickpeas
and some maybe bacon or ham or
maybe ribs, costillas, pork
ribs inside.
And
fantastic.
Potato, a bit of potato.
Some potato.
Yeah.
And what's the black sausage called?
And black pudding morcilla. Yeah.
Morcilla, yeah.
And maybe a tomato cut in half.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, if that's good, that's really good. If you get a good one. Yeah, so I agree with that.
Those are my personal favourites. Yeah, the paella and the arroz al horno. What else is good from this region or in Spain generally?
Well, since we're here in Valencia, let's add a drink to our food. Horchata, it's got to be. Because as far as I know, it's only typical to the Valencian area. But before I get into trouble, it's not Valencia denominación de origen. It's Alboraya. I know. I don't want to offend anybody. The correct proper horchata is from Alboraya, which is a little town right beside Valencia.
Quite close to where we're podcasting from now, actually. And although people may know that, they may not know that it's not originally from here, as paella is. The original horchata comes from West Africa, countries like Mali. So it was brought over here, and then they started growing tiger nuts, which is the base for horchata, tiger nuts in the Alboraya area.
Tiger nuts are chufa, by the way, in Spanish, chufa. If you say tiger nuts to someone in England, they'll have no idea what you're talking about. So we have a word for it, but until you come here, you don't know what it is.
It's not the testicles of a tiger.
No.
It's, definitely not. Obviously, in all of Spain, you can get really, really good olives. And as a consequence, olive oil. Do you have any particular olive favorite or olive oil favorite?
I think from this area, from the Levante, they make really good olive oil. But of course, you also get really good olive oil from Andalusia. It's very famous for that. A lot of land in Andalusia is dedicated to the growing of olives, particularly Jaén. Jaén province is very famous for its olive oil. But all over Spain, particularly where there's plenty of sunshine, you're going to get good olive oil. Yeah. So maybe not so much like in the Basque Country or somewhere like that where it's a bit cooler, but a lot of Spain has really good olive oil, I think.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy olive oil before I came here. I always had butter on my bread. My mum always cooked with margarine or butter. And since living here, I've really developed a love for olive oil and olives. I particularly like the garlic flavoured olives and the hot, spicy olives that you can get with red peppers. Another one of my favourites. And the black olives, the salty black olives are very good too.
Olives and olive oil, it's the very lifeblood of the Mediterranean, isn't it? Mm-hmm. What would the Mediterranean be without olives?
And it's very healthy as well. Another personal favourite of mine is fabada asturiana, which is Asturian bean stew from the north of Spain. I absolutely love that. Although I don't get to the north of Spain very often, you can buy it in cans or jars, and friends of ours often go up to Asturias and they bring us back fabada to eat here. It's got white beans and pork and chorizo sausage inside. Do you like it?
I love it, yeah.
So it's quite heavy.
Very heavy.
But in the winter, oh man, it's really, really good.
Yeah, it's definitely a winter dish, isn't it? Or for the cold weather. You wouldn't want to eat it in the Mediterranean in summer. You wouldn't be able to sleep for about 2 days.
Although I tell you what you could eat in the summer, that's salmorejo. Have you heard of that?
Yes, and I love it. Salmorejo. Very similar to gazpacho, isn't it?
Yep, and it's great in the summer. It's very refreshing, which means it's cool. It's great when you're feeling hot. It refreshes you. And it's a very close cousin of gazpacho. Gazpacho is a thick tomato-based soup made with olive oil, breadcrumbs, and lots of garlic. Absolutely wonderful.
When I was a kid and I thought of Spain, if 3 or 4 images came to mind, one of them was bulls. Spain, bulls. Maybe that's a bit antiquated, but
I think it's still true today.
Still true. You think Spain, you think bulls. So we got to mention rabo de toro. So a bull's tail stewed. We mentioned fabada asturiana, fabada stewed. So rabo de toro is also like a type of estofado, a stew. Do you like that?
I don't mind it, although I think if you mention bull's tail soup to a lot of British people, they won't really immediately think, oh, wow, that sounds fantastic. It's not something that we're very used to eating in the UK, although it's not one of my personal favourites. I do eat it and I enjoy it, but it's not something that's my absolute favourite. What about you?
I really like it. Not my all-time favourite, but it's a nice hearty, that means strong, filling, nice hearty winter dish as well that I like.
Full of flavour.
Full of flavour, yeah.
What about ham? Because we have to mention ham. Ham is eaten all over Spain, and there's quite a variety of different ham here. Now, let's look at it in detail, because I'd heard many people talking about ham since I started living here. So I had an idea of the different qualities of cured ham and Serrano ham, but we went quite deep in our research, didn't we, Reza?
Yes, because you can't not mention ham if you're going to talk about Spanish cuisine, because many people regard Spain as perhaps the best place on earth to get good quality ham.
Before you go into a little bit of detail, I'd like to mention the pronunciation, because sometimes I hear Spanish speakers confusing the word ham, H-A-M, and jam, J-A-M. Jam, with the hard J sound, is mermelada, and ham with the sound, not from the throat, remember, just from the mouth. Ham is jamón.
So who hasn't heard of Serrano ham? In English, we call it the same, Serrano ham. It's good. You can rely on it. It's not the absolute top quality, but it's good. It's going to be better than jamón York, as you say in Spanish. Jamón York, so it's not Serrano. It hasn't been cured the same way.
Ham on New York, we'd say boiled ham, would
Boiled ham in English, yeah. Or just ham. So Serrano ham, that normally comes from, let's call them white pigs, although they're probably more like a pinkish colour. But
or shit colour.
Yeah, exactly. Or covered in something dirty. And there's lots of different qualities of Serrano ham. It depends how long it's been cured. So you cure hams.
Wait a second, you mean the pig is sick and you have to cure it?
No, I wouldn't eat ham from a sick pig if I was you. Cured meaning after it's killed, after it's been slaughtered, that's when an animal's killed for food, then the ham is hung up. It's hung to dry out. It's cured, curado.
Does that include the salting process where they add salt to it? Is that part of curing?
Yes, they usually add salt, although there may be a few where they don't add salt, but yeah, I think generally they do.
And dry it in the air.
Yeah, it should be air dried, definitely air dried. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because Serrano's basic quality. But what if we mention, Craig, for example, jamón ibérico? What do we...
Now we're talking about the difference between a normal Ford car and a Ferrari Portofino. So the jamón ibérico, the Iberian pigs, they're the best breed for ham. Cerdos ibéricos, Iberian pigs. And they have a different taste. So you can really taste the difference depending on the breed. The breed is the type of pig. So, you get different breeds of dogs, then you get different breeds of pigs. And the Iberian pigs, the black pigs, are the best tasting.
And what do they eat? Well, there are different things they can eat. I mean, what do those pigs eat before we eat the pigs? Yeah. And obviously, the better their food, the better they taste on our plate. So your top quality pigs will eat eggcorn. They're de bellota of eggcorn. Eggcorn, A-C-O-R-N. So they're the very best, they're the most expensive, and generally the ones that eat acorn, they're in the open fields most of their lives, moving around, but that's only about 5% of the total production are acorn-fed, proper Iberian. And you can identify it because of the black tag, the etiqueta, the tag on the ham. If you see a red tag, it means that the pigs have roamed free in the acorn orchards, the pasture land where they eat.
What does to roam mean?
To
R-O-A-M.
roam, R-O-A-M, apart from meaning using your telephone outside your own country.
Roaming.
It can also mean just moving around where you want. So that's why we call it mobile roaming, because you go where you want outside your country. So these pigs roam around. They go where they want. They're not enclosed in a small area. But if it's a red tag, they will be a cross, a mixture between Iberian and another type called Duroc. So Duroc is another breed, which is a good breed, but it's not the top quality Iberian. Quite often you see, if on good chorizo, which we'll talk about later, you see Duroc. So they probably wouldn't use Iberian pigs for chorizo because it would be a waste, because the paprika, the pimenton, will overpower the flavor, but they do use Duroc for top quality chorizo.
So if you see Duroc on the label, it's good stuff. It's good chorizo.
But it's not the top quality Iberian ham.
Mm-hmm.
So One thing's a Duroc breed, but even better than that is an Iberian breed.
And that really surprised me that that's only 5% of Spanish ham is pure acorn-fed Iberian. And you really realize the difference because when you taste that ham, and I have tasted some of this, it melts in your mouth. You can use the expression, it's mouth-watering, which means it just disappears. It's so full of flavor and so soft, and it's succulent. There's another word to use to describe the taste, succulent. It's succulent, it's delicious, very, very tasty. There are other pigs who also roam around the fields. They are free-range pigs. We can use the expression free range to describe the way that pigs move about in the same way that we can use free range to describe eggs, because if the chickens are walking around wherever they like, they are free range chickens or free range eggs. So these pigs are free range. They walk around in open fields and they eat some acorns, but they also eat other things. They eat some plants and other things that they find in the field. So because these pigs do not eat as many acorns as the Belota pigs, they're considered inferior in quality. And if you see a green tag or a green label on the ham, that means that you're eating ham from these slightly inferior pigs and the flavor's different.
So that would be de cebo, which is they eat feed, pienso, cebo. But they're free range, de cebo de campo, right? And if you go down a bit lower, and in fact, that's the ham that most people eat because we're not all very rich, 70% of ham eaten in Spain is simply de cebo. So it's farm fed. So they don't roam around eating whatever they want. They eat the cebo, the feed. They're conventionally farmed.
So if like 5% of these pigs are like the best of the best, what percentage would you say are just normal farm-fed pigs, the ham that we eat every day?
70, 80%. Yeah.
Wow.
The vast majority.
So that has a white label on it. So if you see a white label, that's just the ordinary Serrano ham that you would find in a supermarket, normally in a normal restaurant or bar.
Which is still a heck of a lot better than your ordinary boiled ham. Still much better than that.
Yes.
So that's what they eat. Craig, what about the curing process? Are there any distinctions made between different types of curing processes?
Yes, they have different terms depending on how long the ham is cured for. And as Reza mentioned before, to cure the ham is to dry it, usually to hang it. And if you go to some towns in Spain, especially in the mountains near the Albujarras, like Trevelith and these areas, and I'm sure you saw when you lived in Salamanca, you go into shops and you see the legs of ham hanging from the ceilings, and they're drying, and you can see the fat and the liquid being collected at the bottom of the ham. So if the ham is cured between 10 and 12 months, they say it's de bodega. If it's cured longer, from 12 to 15 months, it's labeled reserva or reserve. And gran reserva, the really, really good stuff, is obviously cured longer for more than 15 months.
Yes, what Craig said is quite true about the hams hanging up and the fat dropping out. In my first year in Spain, I believe it was, let me cast my mind back. Was it 1995? No, 94, I believe. 94, 95, I can't even remember. My very first year in Spain, I was in Extremadura. And quite often, do you know how I spent a Saturday night, Craig?
Eating ham?
Yes, but before I ate it...
Drinking beer?
Yep, or wine. And while I was drinking the beer or the wine, I would dance sevillanas underneath the hams which were hanging above my head. And I'm not exaggerating.
I would pay money to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would pay money to do it again. So that was many years ago. In those days in Cáceres, where I lived in Extremadura, there were many, many bars and restaurants which still had the ham hanging up on the ceiling above where people ate. They had like a little thing stuck in the bottom, a little plastic thing, so that when the fat, which naturally drips as it's curing, doesn't fall on people, but occasionally it does because the little white plastic container gets full. And I guess they change it every once in a while, but sometimes it gets full and sometimes you'd be dancing the sevillanas and a bit of pig fat would drop on you. But it was good pig fat, eh? It was worth it.
And did you notice, I don't know if this is true in Salamanca, but in some villages I've been to, small villages, you can walk into a shop that sells tobacco, for example, cigarettes, and there'll be hams hanging from the ceiling. And you walk into another shop that sells something else, like newspapers, and there'll be hams hanging from the ceiling. It doesn't matter what the shop is selling, there are hams everywhere. Has that been your experience?
Yes, because the great thing about the ham is you can cure it. You can, if you know what you're doing, it won't go off for a long time. So you can keep it hanging there.
What does go off
To
mean?
go off is when food, because it's too old, has gone bad. So if you know what you're doing with the ham, and it's a nice dry atmosphere, it can't be humid, it's got to be dry, it won't go off for months or even years.
That's the secret. It's in the air, isn't it? It's the dry air that's the secret.
That's the secret. That is why, in my humble opinion, but I dare to give my opinion about this, because I've lived in Extremadura, which is famous for breeding. We talked about a breed, una raza. So to breed is to select certain breeds and look after them. For breeding, the hairy, black-legged, well, in fact, the whole animal is black, hairy, free-range, roaming, 100% egg corn eating, organic, etc., all of that. The pata negra, top quality Iberico, you can see them roaming around.
And would you say they are the best pigs in the world for producing ham?
In my opinion, it's certainly the best ham I've ever eaten. And if you look at a lot of ranking websites, it comes out as number one, according to the gourmets, the experts. So, in fact, Salamanca, where I went after Extremadura to live in my second and third year in Spain, it's right beside Extremadura. And Salamanca is also famous for its ham, and there are plenty of pigs there. But they say, people in the know, los que sabe, say that the very best ham is pigs which are from the dehesas, the pasture land of Extremadura, which are then brought up to Salamanca to be cured. Now, you can cure them in Extremadura. It's dry there, but even better in Salamanca because it's dry and it's higher up. It's more elevated. So what the ham really benefits from is dry air at altitude. That's why in Valencia they can't cure ham.
But they can in Teruel.
They can in Teruel, just next door, but it's like a couple of 1,000 meters, or at least 1,000. So next door they can do it, but in Valencia you can't cure ham. It won't work. It will go off really quick.
Because the air's so humid. And how much would you expect to pay for such good quality ham, for a leg of that ham?
Well, we mentioned the Iberico, the Bellota, the Pata Negra, top quality. Those, the top ones, go for up to 600, 700, 800 euros. Yeah, but there are even some really, 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 really rare ones, you know, Grand Reserve, especially selected, which are, I've heard of 3,000 or 4,000 pounds or dollars for one. We're talking about a handful. Mm-hmm. But for a really, really, really good one, at least about 600 or 700 euros. So it ain't cheap. It ain't cheap, you know. It's not just something you have, you know, walking down the street. You know, it's a big deal if you're going to buy one of those.
Well, I know we have some listeners in France, and I'm sure Pilar, who's a listener and alcoholic. Hope you're listening, Pilar. The French are very passionate about their food. Have you ever discussed where the best ham is with a French person?
Yes, yeah, I've got a story about that. I actually brought a present of some really good ham to some French friends of mine. And I was very upset that they basically dismissed my present. as a not very good present.
They didn't like it. They didn't like the taste.
Yeah, they said, well, it was okay, nothing special, in front of my very eyes. And okay, it wasn't a €700 for one leg ham, but it was a very good one. I can tell you that. But their reasoning was that French ham was probably better, certainly just as good, and just as good, if not better, from Bayonne, because that part of the French Basque country, they also make ham. And it just so happens that I have been in Bayonne and I have eaten ham there, and it's good. But it's not as good as the really good stuff from Extremadura, Salamanca. I know this as a fact. And I said, no, you're quite wrong, actually. And I go, what? I said, yeah, you're quite wrong. I've lived where they produce the best ham in Spain. I've been in Bayonne. I can tell you it's not as good. And we fell out. To fall out is to stop speaking.
Really?
Yes, to end your relationship. And since then, we have never spoken again. And that was about 12 years ago.
All because of ham?
Yes, because I insisted that the best ham in the world that I knew of was from Spain. And they said, France. I said, I'm sorry, you're wrong. And I did this in France, which is quite dangerous. But I was not prepared to let them have their own way just because of their national pride.
Well, I wonder what the listeners think. Do you think Spanish ham is the best ham you can eat, or do you have another opinion?
By the way, Alfredo and a few other our Italian listeners might have an opinion on this, since their Parma ham is pretty good as well. The old prosciutto.
It is, but it's a different taste, and sometimes it's difficult to compare. It's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. If it's a different thing, is it fair to compare, or should you just accept it's a different food, I guess?
Yeah.
Or a different taste?
I think you're right. Although it's very good. I do like good quality Italian ham as well. It's very good. Better than French.
Ooh la la. Speaking of things that are quite different, would you say that the Spanish do everything better than the English when we're speaking about food? Because we obviously love the food here, and British food sometimes is a bit disappointing. What do you think?
Basically, although there are exceptions, yes. The Spanish basically do everything better, except...
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
I know Craig feels the same as me.
Except the bacon sandwich.
Actually, I wasn't going to say that, but that's true. British bacon's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
British bacon, and Irish as well, is very, very good.
With Irish butter.
It's true you've got the ham, the jamón, but our bacon is very, very good. I wasn't going to say that, but that's very important. I was going to say the big, big fault for me in Spanish cuisine is sweet things. Desserts, cakes, pastries. I must admit, they rarely do it for me. The expression to do it for you means they satisfy you. It's just what you're looking for. I don't get much satisfaction from Spanish sweets, cakes, and pastries. What about you?
Generally speaking, I agree. I have had good desserts in Spanish restaurants, but they tended to be fairly expensive restaurants, because if you're just going to go to an average bar that you'd find in the local area, you're probably not going to get what, in my opinion, is a good dessert. A lot of that has to do, I think, with the quality of the ingredients they use. And because I'm a chocoholic, I usually order something with chocolate. And very often the chocolate is not good quality chocolate. It's not the kind of chocolate that Alberto sent us. It's not high in cocoa content and a good brand. So I agree with you. The desserts here are generally disappointing, although I have had some good cakes and pastries. But I do miss British desserts.
I must admit, I get kind of bored and so disappointed regularly when you're having a menú del día, so the set meal, yeah, or the meal of the day. And you say, okay, what's for dessert? ¿Qué hay de postre? You know what they're going to say before they open their mouths. You don't need to hear it. Hay flan, natillas, arroz con leche, helado. How boring.
De la abuela.
How boring. Always the same. And I'm sure there are people who love those things. I don't really like those things, even if they're well done. But chances are they probably aren't even very well done. I just find them boring.
Yeah.
By the way, we have all of them in British cooking as well. We do our own rice pudding. It's a traditional British thing. We do custard. We do flan. They're not new things for us. So they don't excite me at all, I'm afraid.
Doesn't do it for you.
There is one pastry which I really love. I love Tartar de Santiago.
What's that?
Tartar de Santiago, Santiago cake, is a cake made out of almonds. And yes, it is made in Santiago, in Galicia.
Does it have honey?
Possibly, but
It's quite moist.
no, it's quite dry.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of something else.
Quite dry. There may be honey in it, I'm not sure, but it's quite a dry thing, which explains why I had a strange experience my very first year in Spain when I lived in Extremadura, but I visited Santiago. And I thought, oh, Tartar de Santiago, I'll have that. So I said, Tartar de Santiago. And this Gallego said, y te lo mojo.
Sorry?
Y te lo mojo.
What's that?
Y te lo mojo. But in his Gallego accent with sing-song intonation, y te lo mojo. 5 times he said it, and I said the same as you. ¿Qué? Y te lo mojo, tío. And out of sheer frustration, I said, sí, just to see what would happen. I said, sí. So he...
Does it mean I'll wet it for you?
Yeah, well, I wet it for you.
I'll wet it for you.
Yeah, but I didn't know that until I said, sí. So he came along with a homemade liqueur and he poured it over the top.
Ah.
And in Galicia, apparently they do that quite a lot with Tartar de Santiago.
Okay.
So the liqueur goes into it because it's very dry. And then it was another thing. It was really good then.
Do you remember what liqueur he used?
It was some kind of herb liqueur de hierbas, but homemade. It was really, really good. Very good then. So sí, Tartar de Santiago, mojada.
Wet.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that. I have to remember that. So what have we forgotten? Did we not mention a food that's your personal favourite? And do you disagree with any of our opinions? We'd like to know. Please get in touch and tell us what you think. You can send your voice messages, as usual, through our SpeakPipe service. That's SPEAKPIPE, speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. You can send your emails to me, Craig, at inglespodcast.com or to Reza at belfastreza@gmail.com. And you can also visit the Mansion Ingles store if you're interested in buying a course to improve your English. Go to store.mansioningles.net.
As ever, we'd like to thank all our Patreon sponsors. And if you go to the Patreon website, patreon.com/Ingles podcast, you can see a list of all of them. We can't mention them all now, but we would like to mention just our new, most recent sponsors, who are Julian Gomez, Norman Foster, Joseba Jimenez, Federico Mancinelli, Mario Garcias, Carlos Gallego, and our most recent, Diego Reg. Thanks to you and all our sponsors.
Yeah, thanks very much. If you're interested in joining the Patreon program to support this podcast and also get access to the full transcriptions for each episode, you can go to Patreon, patreon.com/Ingles podcast. What's next week, Reza?
No puedo decirlo.
Why not?
No puedo.
Why not?
No puedo.
Is that because you can't?
It's because I can't, yeah.
Next week, we're speaking about expressions with can't. So join us then. It's been a pleasure to have you with us this week. Until next week, it's goodbye from Reza.
And goodbye from Craig.